The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Rutland again, everybody, and to the first of a pair of twins. There's a great and a little version of this particular place, and the Romans had their say in how this one looks today. This is Great Casterton. Great Casterton, Roman fortress, large. We continue through Rutland this week with the first of a pair of twins. These two both have a connection to a Roman fort that was in the area. That fact is hardly surprising. Here, we're in the village where the Roman road, Ermine Street, crosses the River Gwash. Its name is Great Casterton, and its smaller brother, Little Casterton, is just to the east. We'll see that one tomorrow, but let's get this one out of the way first. Great Casterton sits 3 miles northwest of Stamford and close to the county border with Lincolnshire. Until a bypass was built around the village in 1960, Great Casterton stood on the A1. It ran through the centre of the village following the former route of the Great North Road. The earliest recorded settlement here was that Roman fort, believed to have been built in around 44 AD. A civilian settlement developed around that, which later became a walled town. Some of its defences are still apparent today. As you might expect, therefore, Great Casterton has been the scene of a lot of archaeological excavations. They've been conducted in the village, on a villa near the River Gwash, and in burial grounds believed to be early Anglo-Saxon. Adding to its historical importance, 2 miles north of the village are the earthwork remains of Woodhead Castle, a medieval moated ringwork with an attached bailey. Great Casterton was later the village in which the poet, John Clare, married Martha Turner, or Patty, as we learned yesterday, in 1820. Let's go, folks! Welcome to Great Casterton, folks. This might not be the biggest village in the world, but it definitely has a lot to talk about. First up, we have one of its 2 schools. The village has both a primary school and a secondary, and this is the latter, Casterton College. Casterton College is one of only 3 secondary schools in Rutland. This one provides education for 11 to 16-year-olds and also has a childcare centre for the under 5s. It opened as Great Casterton Secondary Modern in 1939. Its catchment area is the eastern part of Rutland and includes the likes of Cottesmore, Empingham and Ketton, but the college also attracts many students from Stamford across the Lincolnshire border. Casterton College has a tradition of academic excellence and has been the top performing school in both Stamford and Rutland for several years. That's despite being rated quite poorly by Ofsted only a decade ago. In 2017, its maths department was named the best in England at the National Teaching Awards. I particularly like the school's motto, "Dreams don't work unless you do." There's some truth in that, I think. Well, I'll tell you one thing, people, if you are a student at Casterton College, you've got this fantastic view. Look at this, into the valley down there. Now, down there is where Little Casterton is. That's Great Casterton's literal little brother, and we'll see that tomorrow. But for now, we're going to head along this main road. Will take us to the old Great North Road, and there's loads to see down there. Casterton College stands on a piece of land that's away from the rest of the village. Most of Great Casterton's main landmarks and features hug both sides of the old Great North Road, which follows the line of the Roman road, Ermine Street. The name Casterton signifies Roman origin. It's located at Ermine Street's crossing over the River Gwash, which runs almost parallel to the main street. We'll see that river shortly. As such, Great Casterton originally had a different name, Brig or Bridge Casterton, a reference to the crossing point. The earliest recorded settlement here was a Roman fort, established in about AD 44. A civilian settlement adjacent to the fort later developed into a walled town. Sometimes, even today, the locals refer to Great Casterton as a town, but it's most definitely a village. The Romans built their fort in order to guard the crossing of the River Gwash. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries, the town wall was built. It was just over 2 metres wide, and at its base was a wide ditch. The remains of this ditch can be seen today from the road to Ryehall. The buildings within the town were simple structures, the majority being constructed of wood and mud. It covered around 18 acres in total. The town had no regular grid system for the streets apart from Ermine Street itself, which ran right through it. It has been suggested that Great Casterton may have been a posting station, however excavations have since proved this theory to have been impossible. This is Bridge House, a former Great North Road coaching inn dating back to 1700. In 1817 it was known as the New Inn, and it was owned by a Mr. Wilders. He owned several lime kilns in the area, including the one at Pickworth where John Clare was set to work. Over the road from Bridge House are the former premises of Forsyth and Ferrier's garage. Don Forsyth and Jack Ferrier met while serving in the Navy in World War I and decided that after the war they would start a garage. With this intention, Don Forsyth purchased a former blacksmith business run by a Mr. Knight, a maker of agricultural implements. Jack Ferrier joined a few months later, and the partners were able to purchase the freehold from the Exeter estate in 1924 for £500. The first manual petrol pumps were installed in the same year. They went on to become a successful business and later opened another garage in Stamford. The old Great North Road used to be the route of the A1 here, but today that road bypasses the village to the west after the section known as the Stamford Bypass was built in 1960. Even so, this important route, which has been known variously as York Road and Horn Lane, has carried many interesting travellers over the centuries, from members of the royal family to highwaymen, the latter probably including Dick Turpin. Armies, prisoners and drovers' animals moving south to London markets have all passed through Great Casterton at some point. Well, I don't know about you, but I could admire some of these houses all day long. They're absolutely beautiful along the old Great North Road, aren't they? But let's not forget, the old Great North Road had another purpose, and that was to serve travellers. Loads of people came up and down this particular piece of tarmac, or cobbles as it maybe was back in the day, and there were loads of pubs and inns to make sure that people were provided for. There's one still active here in Great Casterton. It's called the Crown. Let's check it out next. These days, the Crown is the only pub left in Great Casterton. There was until recently a second one called the Plough, but we'll see what's happened to that later. The Crown sees itself as a traditional local pub, and it can host events like birthday parties. It also caters for funeral wakes too. That's the advantage of being located over the road from the church. The pub has a welcoming feel to it, with low ceilings and decor to match, and a great team of staff who are only too happy to help. It also offers a patio area at both the front and the back, which means visitors here are able to enjoy those long summer days with a pint or two. Great Casterton's church is dedicated to St Peter and St Paul. The churchyard is entered from the old Great North Road via an arched war memorial dedicated to the men who gave their lives in both World War I and World War II. It was erected by Belton and Goddard of Stamford. One man mentioned on the memorial is Tom Knoll, the son of Gerald Cecil Knoll of Cottesmore House. He died in action in 1918 while serving with the RAF. His brother, John Knoll, was a well-known racing driver in the early 1930s who took part in the Le Mans 24-hour motor race. The church has many interesting features, and it's worth spending a little time here to look at some of them. They include a perpendicular tower with pinnacles which possibly replaced a 13th century bellcote. Inside you'll find a tomb with the effigy of a priest in vestments in the wall of the south aisle. There are two other tombs with remains of an effigy, one in a recess outside the south aisle and the other at the base of the tower. Perhaps the best known memorial this one has is that to Vincent Wing of Pickworth on the outside of the chancel's south wall. He was the son of Tycho Wing, the distinguished philosopher and astronomer of both Stamford and Pickworth. It was in this very church, by the way, that the poet John Clare, who we spoke at length about yesterday, married Martha Turner, or Patty if you will, in 1820. After the ceremony, the wedding party was held in the Crown. It was paid for by Martha's uncle because her parents had disowned her and boycotted the wedding because they objected to her marrying a poor lime burner. Okay folks, get used to seeing this river because we'll be seeing this for the rest of the week in most of the places that I'm going to. This is the River Gwash, and it's very important because this is what helped form Rutland Water, which we'll see at the end of this week. This is a nice bridge, isn't it? Carrying the Great North Road over it. We're going to walk alongside this river for a bit now. It'll take us back up to the garage at the centre of the village, and we'll see what else we can find while we're doing it. The River Gwash is a new river for us on TVI, but this is definitely not the last time we'll see it. It's about 24 miles long after all. It's a tributary of the River Welland and flows through Leicestershire, Rutland and Lincolnshire. It rises just outside the village of Nossington in Leicestershire, near the western edge of Rutland. The Gwash helps to fill the Rutland Water Reservoir, which was formed by damming its valley at Empingham. That's coming later this week. Most etymologists believe that the Gwash's name is Old English, deriving from the word wesk, which means washing or flood. John Clare wrote a sonnet about the Gwash, published in Poems Descriptive of Rural Life and Scenery in 1820. It goes like this. Where winding gash whirls round its wildest scene, on this romantic bend I sit me down. On that side view the meads their smoothing green, edged with the peeping hamlets chequering brown. Here the steep hill, as dripping headlong down, while glides the stream a silver streak between. As glides the shaded clouds along the sky, brightening and deepening, loosening as they're seen. In light and shade, so when old willows lean, thus their broad shadow runs the river by. With tree and bush replete or wildered seen, and mossed and ivied sparkling on my eye. Oh, thus wild musing am I doubly blessed, my woes unheeding, and my heart at rest. The bridge over the Gwash, after which Brig Casterton took its name, was the site of a medieval watermill. Nothing remains of it today, but it is clearly shown on a map from 1798, when the village was part of Lord Exeter's estate, centred on Burley House. Okay, I tell you, to get to this point, people, if you do follow this route, you have to be very careful, because that footpath alongside the Gwash is very muddy at this time of year. It's been a slip fest all the way back up to this little green, but I have made it in one piece, so thankfully we can continue. And we're going to head up to the old Great North Road in the other direction now. We're going to head towards an old pub, which is now something else. Now we're heading north. In 1959, to the north of the old Roman town, a Saxon burial ground was partially excavated and a smelting kiln was uncovered. A large part of the burial ground was further excavated in 2004 and then destroyed by a housing development. It is possible, but not proven by excavation, that the burial ground may have extended to the site occupied today by the former Plough Inn. Now we're at the former Plough Inn, which closed in 2013 and was formerly a Melbourne's pubmaster pub on the old Great North Road. Today the place isn't pulling pints, but it's still used by a business. This is now the Stamford Osteopathic Clinic. The clinic has a team of highly skilled professional practitioners who have a reputation for successfully treating complex problems that have been unsuccessfully resolved elsewhere, using other treatments. Our last landmark is the local primary school. This is Great Casterton C of E, which is built on the site of a much older original primary school constructed in 1861 by the Marquis of Exeter. It was designed to teach 60 juniors and 24 infants. I'd imagine this modern school has a far bigger capacity than that. Here's a little bit about Woodhead Castle to finish with. Unfortunately, the remains of the castle are on private land, so this is the best I can do with it. It was probably visited by Edward I in 1290, according to some sketchy records. It's located about a mile and a half north of the village, and it's little more than a mound these days. The earthwork remains of the castle consist of a medieval moat with an attached bailey. The ringwork measures approximately 90 metres square, with arms 12 metres wide and 4 metres deep, except in the northwestern corner where the moat has been enlarged and it's currently waterlogged. The moat island has an inner bank comprising the remains of a stone wall which survives to a height of 1 metre in some parts. The foundations of buildings, including a chapel, can be found on the northern half of the island too. Okay, now I'm making my way back up the hill between the primary school and Casterton College, and that is pretty much the walk all the way around Great Casterton. But of course, as I said at the beginning, this is a pair of twins, and we'll be seeing its near neighbour tomorrow. Now, you might be interested in its near neighbour if you have a love of Shakespeare. You'll see why very shortly. And that'll do us for Great Casterton, but this is only half of the Casterton story. Come back tomorrow and we'll cover the other half. Tomorrow we'll be seeing another ancient church and talking about Tolthorpe Hall, where there's an interesting landmark indeed, an outdoor theatre. See you there. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.